Well, congratulations. You've made it all the way through 201. And we really are glad that you've taken the time and the energy to try to understand a blueprint for pursuing God for your life. You know, throughout these lessons, we've tried to give you 10 of the most important principles you need as you continue in your relationship with God. And, you know, this certainly isn't an exhaustive list of everything you'll ever need to know for your entire Christian life, but our goal has been to help you establish a solid foundation in your faith. And as we wrap this up now, I just want to remind you, what we've talked about is that pursuing God is like building a house. It starts with a solid foundation right here. First, you have this foundation, and that is understanding the basics of salvation, having a blueprint for pursuing God and starting to dig into the Bible. We call this 101, 201, and 301. Again, we think these are just absolutely foundational parts of a life of pursuing God. And now our hope is that you've been prepared to begin a lifelong journey of building up on that foundation in your life. Now that you have the foundation, we want you to start building up on that foundation. Building up is simply developing those ways in which we pursue God in our own lives in order to mature and grow as disciples. And throughout Foundations, we've tried to give you some practical ways to do this. We've talked about pursuing God in the Bible. We talked about how to pray, about the importance of being connected in those meaningful relationships with other Christians. We talked about the importance of serving those around you. And these are all practical ways to focus on building up in your relationship with God. But remember, as we said in Principle 10, if you only focus on building up, then you're not really a complete follower of Jesus, because one of the main commandments that Jesus gave us was to go and to build out. So as we wrap all this up, we wanted to end by giving you some practical ways to do that, some practical ways to actually start building out. We don't want this idea of building out just to be some nice thought, not to just be some practical abstract idea, but we want to give you some practical action steps, a simple plan to help you start building out. Now, as we begin that, first, let me be clear about what we mean by building out. What does this phrase really mean? And very simply, it just means helping someone else establish their foundation. Just like you are establishing a foundation in Christ, you now want to help other people do the same thing. Remember that Jesus commanded all of his followers to go and make disciples. That means that Jesus wants all of us to be actively involved in helping to take people who are far from God and bring them closer to God. And an easy way to think about this is that we want to help other people establish their own foundation in Christ. Remember that ultimately people need to take responsibility for their own spiritual lives. They've got to pursue God on their own, but you can play a vital role in getting them started by helping them establish their own foundation. So don't be intimidated thinking that you've got to have all the right spiritual answers, or you have to be a pastor, you have to be at some deep level of maturity or something like that before you can help someone. You really only need to be one step ahead. And so your goal in building out is simply to help other people establish their foundation in Christ. So how do we do that? Let me give you just two really practical ways, two practical, simple ways to begin building out. Here's the first thing. The first thing you can simply do is to invite someone to church, to be invitational. As you pray about and start to recognize people in your life that are far from God or don't know the biblical Jesus, look for an opportunity just to invite them to church. Now, you see, you don't have to go knocking on doors of strangers or preach on the street corners if you want to actively build out. Just think about the people that are in your sphere of influence that don't have a relationship again, with the biblical Jesus. Maybe it's family or friends or coworkers or neighbors. And as you think about these people, simply invite them to come to church with you. People are rarely offended by a simple invite to church. It shows that you really care about that person because you're wanting to share with them something that is very important to you, something that's changed your life. You might not feel like you're a gifted evangelist or knowledgeable enough to teach someone else the Bible, but just about anyone can invite someone to church, and that's a great way to start building out. Our services are designed to be a safe place for people to investigate the truth about God. We try to make everything we do clear and understandable, to never be needlessly offensive, and to consistently present the hope of salvation through faith in Jesus Christ. So if you want to start building out, just invite someone to church. And then, here's the second thing. Once someone has come to church with you, the second way to help them establish their foundation is to follow up with foundations. After they come come to church, ask them what they thought, ask them their questions, their comments, and as you follow up with them, give them a copy of Foundations. This booklet is designed not only as a way for you to establish your foundation in Christ, but also as a practical tool to help you help others establish their foundation. So make sure they get a copy of the Foundations booklet and offer to walk through it with them if they would like. You see, you don't have to be pushy or obnoxious. Remember, you're not trying to shove Jesus down anyone's throat. You're simply trying to share the best thing that ever happened to you, which is a relationship with Jesus Christ. And if they're willing, start by taking them through 101, the first part of this booklet. Some people might want to read it on their own for a while before they really want to talk about it, and that's okay, but just make sure you follow up with them. But make sure that they take the time to read through 101. And if someone goes through 101, either on their own or with you, be willing to ask them if they're ready to have their defining moment of putting their faith in Jesus Christ. And if they are ready to put their faith in Jesus Christ, well, that's great. Then lead them through that simple prayer at the end of 101 and have them write down the date in their Foundations booklet, and then celebrate this together because you've helped someone to lay the most important part of their foundation in Christ, which is eternal salvation. And then, once they've done that, they've had their defining moment and they're a Christian, now you can help them complete their foundation by going through 201 with them in a Foundations class or in a group or just you by yourself. Foundations always starts off with the basics of 101. And so you want to make sure that they hear and really understand this message of salvation again. But then they'll continue to go on and to learn what you've been going through over these last several weeks. And then, if you've invited someone to go through 101 and 201, when they're done with that, offer to go through 301 with them, which is simply reading the New Testament. See, if you can do this, if you can invite someone to church and then walk them through 101 and then 201 and then 301, you can make a disciple. It's really not complicated. It's a simple plan. And as you do this, what you'll see is you're going to start to grow as a disciple yourself as you are being faithful to Jesus' call to build out. And it all starts with being invitational, with inviting someone to church with you. And then after they come, follow up with Foundations. So, again, congratulations as you finish up 201. And let me encourage you to continue pursuing God. And, again, let me encourage you to do that very practically by completing 301, the last step in Foundations. And, again, that's simply reading the New Testament. And you can do that on your own, or you can do that with a friend or in a group. But make sure you continue to read the New Testament. And here's the last thing I'll say. Don't wait until someday down the road to start building out. You can start today. You can do this now. Again, you don't have to be some spiritual expert to do this. It simply starts by inviting someone to church and then using this little booklet and follow up with Foundations.